Hey, what's up? This is Cody, and if you're tuning into this episode, it's probably because you are here to figure out how to install the 1967 to 1972 Chevy Cab Light kit that you purchased from me. If you did, thank you so much. I appreciate the support, and in this episode, hopefully you will be able to help figure out where to put the cab lights, how to install them, and for those of you who have not purchased a kit or don't even know what I'm talking about right now, maybe this will be a good opportunity for you to find out. So behind me is my 1971 GMC pickup, and it does not have any cab lights on it. And you're probably wondering, if you're not familiar with these body styles, why I am actually making a video about installing cab lights. Should be pretty straightforward, right? Wrong. When these trucks came from the factory, they had an option to include cab lights, clearance lights was what they're also called. And when that would happen, they actually had a different kind of roof on the top. And it was raised, it provided raised sections on the cab that gave, supposedly the story is, they gave more room for the wiring and everything to come out and through the cab. And so they actually had formed bumps, is the best description that I could think of for them, that raised just the areas where the cab light was. So this was very specific for 1967 to 1972 Chevy and GMC pickups. It did not matter if your truck was a half-ton, two-wheel drive, short bed, step side, or if it was a medium-duty grain truck, C60 series or whatever. It did not matter. It was an option back in the day that you could either have them or not. It was a very rare option, and so people have really started wanting to get these cab lights on their roofs and have it be the factory look with the raised bumps. It is possible to put the lens directly on top of the cab as a normal non-cab light cab would be, and it could be fine. But if you're looking for that factory look, that rare option look, your choices are very limited as to what you can do. Most of the time, if someone really wants to get this kind of feature on their vehicle and add it, they can cut the roof skin off of another truck that has the cab lights, or they can completely swap out the entire cab itself. Either option is very labor intensive. It could be very costly to purchase the cab, because even if you're just using the roof skin, chances are that cab, you have to buy the whole cab either way. And the labor to go into completely swapping out a new cab, I mean, unless you're doing a build, it's really hard to do. And so a lot of people want these cab lights, that factory option look, but it can be very hard, very technical to accomplish. So what I have come up with is actually a kit that will completely convert a non-cab light roof, like this one, smooth, and add in these bumps. So here's what I mean. Up here is the smooth cab. I already have it kind of marked off, and we'll cover that more in more detail. But the idea is to provide these raised bumps for the lights. So this is a smooth cab roof. It did not come with factory cab lights. And we're going to be putting these on. And these represent the factory bumps that came in the cabs. And I have a roof skin from a factory cab, and this is what I'm talking about. So this is the corner of the roof. It's not an entire skin, obviously. So this was on the end of the cab, where it would be right in this area. And they came factory with 5 lights. Again, this was an option to select. And it's really hard to find these cabs because it's a very rare option. And so the idea here is with the pieces that I've made, is that they are going to help someone add this look onto their cab. So again, that's just a little backstory for those of you who are not familiar with these cab lights. It's a pretty neat feature. But this video is intended mostly for the people who have already bought these kits. So without further ado, we're gonna jump into where we can locate all 5 of the lights. So I'm gonna jump up into the truck. Okay, so fast forward a little bit. Here we are in the back of the truck. So I put the roof skin that we were just looking at on top of the cab, and I was able to locate where each light was, just sitting on top of this roof. Now, this is measurement by a tape measure on a cab roof that curves side to side this way, and the front of the cab is also curved. So take these measurements with a grain of salt. I did the best that I could with what I had, but this is basically what I came up with. I ran a tape line from the edge of the drip rail, the seam. Give you a little bit better view here. Don't mind my roof. So the front of the tape is attached to the front, to where that seam is on the drip rail, and I ran it all the way across to the front of that side. So that was to help give some form of a straight line for reference so that we can measure off of that. Now, taking the holes I marked from the original cab light and measuring them on the actual tape that I put down, here's what I came up with. So again, this is very hard to measure with all the contours it has, but I feel like this is pretty accurate. And if you run the tape from here to the middle, and then you do it from that side back this way, you're gonna get a pretty accurate measurement. This is going to be kind of rough as it is, so take that with a grain of salt and keep that in mind as you're doing this. But the first thing I did after I laid the tape down was I figured out where the center of the roof is. And it's kind of hard to see based on where you're at, but it's 31 5/8 inches is the halfway point on the roof side to side. And then from there, I actually was measuring from center of the middle light to the center of this light. So from the center of the middle to the center of the second light closest to the middle is 6 1/16 inches. Again, that's center to center. And from there, the bolt pattern for the bumps themselves, the bolt pattern between the two holes is 2 3/4 inches. And so you measure the center, and then you can measure out to the bolt patterns, so that way you know exactly where it's going to be located. And so these ones are relatively straight across. Again, I say relatively. I did measure from the tape line, the front of the tape line edge, to indent that I made from the original mounting holes. And what I discovered was, for the middle light, the side, one of the holes are 1 5/8 inches away from this tape. And then the first next hole drilled, but it would be 1 9/16 inch, and the next one would be 1 1/2 inches. So again, the middle is square to the front of the truck, and then as you start to move to the side, they tend to turn just a little bit. I'm over exaggerating right now, just to give the idea. If you were to make all of these even, it probably would be fine. Probably be hard to see, but if you're going for that exact factory look, that's what I would do. And then the side pieces are even a little bit more tricky. So running the tape line, this is 1 inch thick tape that I used, and it just so happens that the inside hole, mounting hole for this bump, it actually touches the tape. It's like that on both ends, over there and right here. They both touch the tape. And from the edge of the drip rail, again, using a measuring tape, that's kind of curved over and hooked over, but the measurement that I got was 7 3/8 away, and it's kind of hard to see exactly. 7 3/8. Now the very exterior hole, because these corner lights lenses are actually very skewed to the going outward of the truck. They're not straight at all. So they're very obviously turned, unlike those ones. But again, the distance from this mounting hole to this mounting hole is 2 3/4, and this hole is actually 1 1/4 inches away from the tape. And from my measurement, I got 4 3/4 inches away from the drip rail. So these outside bumps, I measured from the drip rail in, and on these three, I measured from center out. So I really hope that helps those of you who bought this kit who want the factory locations. My contact info is in the description of this video, so definitely reach out to me. And if you have any other questions, I'm hoping that this video is good enough. I'm always happy to help if you guys need it. And again, I appreciate you purchasing this kit. I'm gonna do things a little bit differently than what I measured out here. I'm gonna put a few more cab lights in, actually. I'm gonna put 7 in, not 5. And there are a lot of different ways in which people can mount these. Put some rib nuts in. Getting ready to use the mounting screws to clamp the part down with panel adhesive. So this is what you're going to get in the kit. You're going to get the sheet metal for the bumps that go onto the cab. You're going to get a lens, the seal that goes between the lens and the bump, mounting hardware. I do also have clips that these mount to that go inside the bumps. They're not here at the moment, and I actually did something a little bit different in my application because there are so many different ways to do this. I am not going to be able to supply an ability for everyone to mount the same way that I did, but I am going to provide a way for you to mount these down. And then also I am going to be using these 3/4 inch LED lights in order to light up the system. Now these are pretty cool because obviously I do not have an amber lens, but these 3/4 inch LED lights light up in an amber color. And so my truck is painted gray. No, this is not a primer. I know it kind of looks like a primer. It wasn't the color I was expecting to have when I painted it. But these, so these lenses, they look a lot better on my truck than an orange tinted lens would. And so during the day, they're gonna have a nice color that matches my truck pretty well, a nice gray finish, smoked clear, if you will. And then at night, when I turn the lights on, they're actually going to show an amber color. So it kind of checks all the boxes, which is pretty neat. And these lenses, let me get this hardware off. See if I can do this one-handed. Okay. So the way these are going to work is the grommet that comes with the light, you're actually going to be able to push this down. It's going to be a tight fit, but it is going to work. Okay, fits in there like it was meant to be. And then the light itself is going to feed through the hole. And it's going to press in. It's just going to press inward. It is going to be very snug, which is good. So you know it's not going to go anywhere. And there you go. So then the lens is going to fit on. And I do these lenses either in a normal clear, a smoked clear, which is like these guys, or obviously the most popular one is the most original look, and that is an orange or amber kind of lens. But that's it. So now I need to go through and apply these. And you are going to have to figure out a wiring solution that goes from this part through the rest of the truck, because again, you can do that in a lot of different ways. And so this is a custom option for trucks. It's a product that hasn't been out there. And so there's a lot of different ways to do this, and I'm not going to stand in the way of the way you want to do it best. I am going to show you the way that I'm going to do it. So there you go. And then back to how I mounted this in a better explanation. So if you see they're inside So you have the bump here, and inside of it, this is actually, you can see the ridge of the original roof. So I didn't cut that up. All I did was I drilled a bigger hole there, and then I drilled the 2 holes to mount the bumps. And when I panel adhesive it, the bump, I put it down, and then I put the bolts through the holes and mounted them to the rib nuts. And I don't know if you can actually see the rib nuts. I put the bolt down. So you can kind of see the very edge of the rib nut just below my thumb there. Right there, that's the ridge of the rib nut. But I'm going to be supplying clips that actually work with the new bump. In case you want to cut out the entire hole to mount the bump to the actual sheet metal of the cab, you can do that. You can panel adhesive it the way I did it. You can take this piece and weld it to the cab. You got a lot of different options. So either you or your body guy can definitely make these work. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to remove the rest of these lenses so I can get this wiring done. Alright, so that's kind of what I'm thinking for the wiring. This is just to show what it looks like before I fish it through the cab. So I have the orange wire is going to be my hot, the white wire is going to be the ground. I'm going to wire this into the factory headlight switch so that when the parking lights come on, so do these cab lights, clearance lights, whatever you want to call them. And I'm just going to directly wire these light bulbs into the wiring harnesses, because I'm not planning on taking any of this out anytime soon. These are LEDs, so they draw extremely low current, and they should last a very long time. And if they ever fail on me, then I guess I will have to deal with that when I get there. But I'm just trying to save on how many connections I have. And so I gave myself enough space with each wire, enough room, enough length for each wire, so that I can fish it through the cab and keep pulling them up one at a time as I go along, so that I have enough to work with. You don't want to give yourself too little a wire, but you can give yourself a little too much and figure it out as you go. And that should work. Here we are on the best workbench in the shop, the truck's tailgate. We've got to remove all the grommets off of the lights. And we put everything together. I am using these connectors because they heat shrink, and that will keep the connection between these wires and the wiring harness together and sealed away. I don't expect any moisture to get into the cab lights, but if it ever does, I do not want it to short out and cause an electrical problem where I'm not aware of it. And to hold everything together, I'm just using this fabric tape. It works really well, it tears easily. And then I'm actually going to put a whole wire loom on this to keep it even more protected. Okay, so there we have it. We have all of the lights in the harness routed. That was a really fun chore. So I'm going to recommend, I think I did this wrong. Before you even decide to before you put the bumps on, and if you're going to put rib nuts in, the original sheet metal like I did, if you can see it. So that underneath is the original sheet metal, and then I put rib nuts into that. And even before I'd get to that step, I would do all the routing of the wiring harness, because the rib nuts, they stick down through the cab, and so the wiring harness likes to get tied up on that going across. And so on the far side, on the passenger side, I threw a fishing line in, routed it across to the driver's side corner, and then from there, I pulled all the harnesses through, pulled them all out, made myself a little wire hook, and then back on the driver's side to get it down into the cab to hook up to power, I tied the end of the wiring harness to the fishing line again and routed it through. And there's going underneath here, there's a substructure kind of right here, and you want to be able to feed the fishing line over that. And then about here-ish, there is a hole that goes down the A-pillar. And so you run the fishing line tied to the wire, and you push the wire through the A-pillar, down, all the way through. And then this is, I currently do not have my courtesy light switch in, and the wiring harness for that routes through a hole that's right here. And I drilled an oversized hole for that, and that's where the wires pop out. Now the white one here is the ground, so I'm going to ground it probably right here. I already have the screws out. And then the orange line is key on power to the parking light switch. Tied the hot wire to an actual parking light socket. So it's one of these two brown ones in the connector. And now, when I turn just the parking lights on, it's hanging in down from the outside, but there